I got a quick question before we start.
I think we're ready to start.
Oh, could I ask a really quick question?
Sure.
Being in January, are we supposed to do any electing chair, vice chair stuff, or did we take care of that already?
That happens in February.
February? Okay, thanks.
Yep. Madam Chair?
Thank you. Now starting the January 7th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Mr. Kane, will you take roll?
Commissioner Daly?
Aye, here, sorry.
And can you please state your city, county, and state?
Mount Pleasant, Isabella, Michigan.
Commissioner Friedrich?
Here, Mount Pleasant, Isabella, Michigan.
Chair Honig?
I'm here in Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
Commissioner Irwin?
I'm here in Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, state of Michigan.
Commissioner Kingsworthy?
I'm also here. I'm in Mount Pleasant and Isabella County in Michigan.
Commissioner Kostreva?
Here, Mount Pleasant, Isabella, Michigan.
Commissioner Leash?
Here, Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, state of Michigan.
Commissioner Ortman?
Here, Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
Commissioner Rice?
Here, Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, state of Michigan.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich?
Aye.
Commissioner Honig?
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin?
Is that me? Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy?
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva?
Aye.
Commissioner Leash?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman?
Aye.
Commissioner Rice?
Aye.
Madam Chair, motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the December 3rd, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich?
Aye.
Commissioner Honig?
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin?
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy?
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva?
Aye.
Commissioner Leash?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman?
Aye.
Commissioner Rice?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the December 3rd, 2020 work session minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich?
Aye.
Commissioner Honig?
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin?
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy?
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva?
Aye.
Commissioner Leash?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman?
Aye.
Commissioner Rice?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Zoning Board of Appeals report. Commissioner Friedrich?
Madam Chair, we did not meet in December.
Thank you. And next item on the agenda is communications. Mr. Kane?
Madam Chair, you had two communications this evening. One was provided in your packet from Scott Diener at Barnes and Thornburg LLP regarding your public hearing this evening. The second was provided to you by email ahead of the meeting that was received after the packet was sent out. And that was from Austin Hollenbeck, a principal with Absolute Royal LLC, also in regard to tonight's public hearing.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is SUP 21 and SPR 2101. Mr. Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, our first and only public hearing this evening is for Special Use Permit 2101, Site Plan Review 2101, located at 801 Industrial Drive. The applicant's proposing to locate a Class C medical marijuana grower at the existing building located at 801 Industrial. The subject property is zoned SDI Industrial. There are no special requirements associated with the property. Future land use of the subject property is industrial. The current and prior uses is a manufacturing facility. Property owner is Common Investments LLC, and the applicant is Absolute Royal LLC. The total site area is 6.13 acres. Just to better orient you with the property, this is located on the north end of the city of Mount Pleasant in the city's industrial park north. You'll note that the property has frontage on 3 sides, one on North Mission Road and 2 sides that abuts Industrial Drive. Surrounding uses are largely industrial in nature. The future land use and zoning of properties within the city adjacent to this property is industrial with an STI industrial zoning classification. Properties immediately to the north are located in the Charter Township of Union, and as a result have different land use, future land use and zoning characteristics. The property to the north in the township has a commercial industrial mix, future land use, and is currently zoned B5 highway business. There's an office building located to the north, a restoration company to the east, a fire suppression company, and the global campus for Central Michigan University are located to the south, and immediately to the west is vacant land. The picture on your screen depicts current conditions of the property. This is viewed from Industrial Drive looking toward the northwest. So in the distance to the left where you see the white vans, if you were to look beyond those, that would be North Mission Road. To the right would be the hook in the road on Industrial Drive where the road turns from heading east-west to north and south. The subject property is depicted in front of you. It's a 33,496 square foot building. The applicant's intent is to operate the one medical marijuana Class C grow license, which allows for the growth of up to 1,500 plants, and to utilize 10,000 square feet of the existing building for that purpose. The existing business that occupies the building, a portion of the building currently, will remain. That business machines parts, engineers systems, and builds machinery for various different industries. And as I mentioned, it will remain. The applicant's not proposing to make any building additions. A floor plan of the current and proposed conditions was included in your packet. The proposed hours of operation for the Class C grower would be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The site has 2 parking areas, one on the east side of the site and one on the west side of the site, which in total contain 92 parking spaces. The site also has 2 existing loading areas, one on the east side of the site and one on the west side of the site. The applicant is proposing landscaping and bicycle parking consistent with the requirements of City Code. However, as is normal with these type of cases, there is additional information that will be required before final site plan approval is issued regarding the proposed species of plants and the specifications for that bicycle parking. Medical marijuana growers are considered a special use in the STI zoning district, and as such, they're subject to a number of specific criteria related to the use that are reviewed tonight as part of the approval. By now, I believe the Planning Commission is very familiar with what those standards are, but they address a number of specific issues that might arise related to a medical marijuana use, including odor, light spillage, and noise. On the screen, you'll see a copy of the proposed site plan for the property. As I mentioned, the only site work that's proposed on this case is to bring the site into compliance with the zoning ordinance in terms of landscaping, both regular landscaping and screening, as well as the provision of bicycle parking in accordance with the zoning ordinance. We will need specifications on both of those items as part of conditions for final approval, and you'll see that noted in staff's recommended conditions tonight. At this time, the applicant is not proposing to do any other site changes, including providing any new lighting. Any existing lighting on the site has to conform with the city's lighting standards, which are contained in section 96.13 of the city code. Any future changes to the lighting would also have to conform with that code section. So with that, staff's recommendation this evening is approval of special use permit 2101 and site plan review 2101, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant comply with all special use permit criteria for medical marijuana facilities, as well as the specific criteria applying to growers. 2, the applicant shall provide specifications for the bicycle parking. 3, the applicant shall provide a landscaping plan, which includes the quantity, species, and size of proposed plantings. And 4, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of public works and public safety. Comments from both of those departments were included in your packet. We have several folks on the call tonight from the applicant Absolute Royal LLC to answer any questions that might arise from the Planning Commission. And that concludes my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Any questions for Mr. Kane? Hearing no questions, if the applicant would like to speak?
Yeah, how you doing? I'm Alex Hallenbeck. I'm one of the principals here. I just wanted to say that we look forward to starting an operation here. We want to continue our manufacturing that we already do. We employ about 20 people here, plus about another 3 or 4 part-time truck drivers that work also in this facility. But I'm just explaining that what we already do, and I look forward to maybe hiring a lot more people to help us out in this medical part of it. So that's what we look forward to, contributing to the communities and and stuff like that too. So.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have one, Mr. Alex. Take me back. This facility is going to be both a retail establishment and a wholesale establishment. The public is going to come here to purchase, as well as you're going to be, there'll be freight trucks coming through here to distribute your product to other growers, or tell me more. Tell me more. I forget exactly the implications of a grower.
This is just a grow facility. No public will be allowed here at all. And so that's kind of what we want to have it that way. That there's plenty of, you guys already have plenty of distribution areas, and there's no sense in crowding that. I think there's going to be a big need for the product, and because of all the other distribution centers in the state, we feel, why flood the market with one more in tax zoning and everything else? We're trying to make that happen also. So there's no sense in it.
Where are you right now?
We're here at the office. We're at 801 Industrial Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could interject, I just wanted to Commissioner Kostreva's question, indicate that the licenses for provisioning centers for medical marijuana and for retailers under the adult use ordinance were awarded as a result of a competitive, the medical provisioning center licenses were awarded through our lottery process in 2019, and our recreational retailer licenses were awarded through a competitive process in August of 2020. And so at this point, there are no additional license opportunities available under either ordinance. The ordinance does allow for a retailer or provisioning center to co-locate with a grower or a processor, but the license that's proposed tonight would just allow them to grow marijuana that would be processed and sold by others. If there was ever a desire to modify the terms of that, to add those uses in the future, that would require coming back to the Planning Commission for a new special use permit.
Thanks, Jacob.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. I will open up public comment, or the public hearing, if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment. Don't forget to unmute yourself if you
Having a
have.
rough night with that. Looks like the member of the public that had their hand raised is rejoining the call. While we're waiting for that, I will note that we do not have any correspondence in our comment inbox.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, David Hill at Barnes and Thornburg. We submitted, or Scott Dinas in my office submitted a written reply to the special use application. And we're representing Cayman Holdings, that is the adjacent office building use where CMU has their global campus. We don't really have much to add. I won't spend a significant amount of time here this evening. However, K&M is significantly concerned about the odor nuisance that this property and this use may cause for their adjacent office building use. So while it is an industrial area, I think it's relevant to understand that there is some office use in the immediately adjacent across the street facility. And in the application that was submitted, we find that it was very deficient in terms of identifying any any noise or air quality considerations that not only K&M should have, but any other adjacent property owners might have in the vicinity. Now, they did submit something earlier today that attempted to correct that deficiency and provide some details, but we have not had sufficient time to really review that in full detail, and we don't think that's also sufficient to correct that deficiency in the application. So I won't go into further detail beyond that, but we believe that and are requesting that that this is not approved this evening and that this is to be tabled so that they can provide further specificity on the design and odor mitigation systems for review from K&M Holdings and the other adjacent property owners.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question of the person? I don't know if that's in order, so that's up to you.
Go ahead.
So I'm just trying to summarize here. You have concerns about odor mitigation. I think you have concerns about the noise and sight appearance problems of air handlers, which would go along with just air handling, but would have to you have to push the air through filters in some way, and so the air handling units are going to have to do that. And you also have a concern about the details of the floor plan not being submitted. How is my summary of your concerns?
That's accurate.
So I mentioned things: odor, air. Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead, please.
No, your summary is accurate. We'd like to see specifically more detail from them on the odor mitigation. What they submitted earlier today seems to be very general and doesn't give us much of an opportunity to fully respond.
If I can ask a question, just how close is CMU's global campus, the actual building to the building that Mr. Hollenbeck is going to occupy? How isn't that, to me, it seems like it's over 100 yards away, is it?
Commissioner Kostreva, I could address that question.
Yes.
Because I just checked. It appears that from closest point to closest point, the buildings are approximately 175 feet away from each other.
175, so it's about 40. Yeah, not 100 yards. Okay.
We believe it's downwind, but that's why we're concerned.
Does Global Campus count as a school or university?
For the purposes of, Commissioner Rise, I'm assuming that question was directed at me. For the purposes of the location standards for medical marijuana facilities under our ordinance, there are location limitations that apply to the SDU zoning district, which is the main campus of Central Michigan University. They don't apply to any other educational properties unless it's a K through 12 school.
May I direct a question to Mr. Kane?
Wait, who said that?
I apologize. It was out of order a little bit.
So we still have public comment open. If it's not going to be directed to the person that just made the public comment, we should probably see if there's other public comment, and then we can open discussion.
Okay. You're here.
You're here.
Hmm?
Yes.
Yes.
So is there any other public comment at this time for this hearing? Hearing none, I will close public comment and open discussion.
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer Commissioner Kingsworthy's question if he still has it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kane. As the newcomer, forgive me for my clumsiness, but can we assume that that the staff recommendation to approve the applicants was made in consideration of the objections raised by K&M Holdings through the Barnes and Thornburg group?
I don't know if I would, Commissioner Kingsworthy, I don't know if I would portray it in that manner. What I would say is that part of the review of an application for special use includes consideration of impacts of light, noise, odor, traffic, and other potential adverse impacts to neighboring properties. And in this specific instance, there are specific criteria which apply under the code to medical marijuana facilities and to growers, which include meeting certain minimum specifications for odor control, which part of the staff recommended condition of approval is being compliant with those special use permit criteria. So while I will acknowledge that we do not have full specifications for the odor control system for this project, which would be unusual for us to have that level of detail at this stage, this applicant must comply with the minimum standards, which are very specific within the special use permit criteria for the use.
Very good. Thank you. No more questions.
Jacob, if these folks, downwind or no, smell any hint of marijuana, is the facility then in violation of the code?
I would, first of all, I would clarify, no. If there was odor emanating from this property and we determined that this property was out of compliance with the special use permit requirements, which would include things like maintaining negative air pressure within the facility and having a filtration system in good working order that's consistent with the special use permit criteria. If they were not in compliance with those standards, then they would be at risk of having their special use permit revoked or of having a citation issued against them by the building official to bring them into compliance.
So you could possibly smell and that would be okay?
The intent of the ordinance is to mitigate the smell to the absolute maximum possible. But I don't think anyone could guarantee that there would never, ever, ever be an odor under any circumstances from any facility. I'm not sure we can promise that level of absolution, but the standards that are included in our code are based on best practices for the industry and are similar to the standards that have been adopted by other municipalities around the state of Michigan and in other places around the country. So as best as we can guarantee that odor will be completely mitigated by these standards, that's the best we can do.
So there isn't any parts per million kind of requirement. I don't think there is.
There is not, no, sir.
There was, you had said it is not usual that the level of detail that the law firm says they would like, that's not a usual level of detail in our special use permit application?
Well, I think responding to the general complaint about the completeness of the application, I would assume the Planning Commission would agree that the type of conditions that are included in tonight's staff recommendation are typical of nearly every case that the Planning Commission considers. It's very normal for us to be lacking the level of detail that they're requesting at this stage of our project. An HVAC system design is something that's typically going to occur as part of a building permit process. So to have that level of detail now, well, it's not impossible to provide. It would be highly unusual.
what about their concern that we approve and then they lose a lot of rights to things they're concerned about, or the rights to otherwise seek information? Is that correct? This is it for their rights to say, boy, we're really worried about that and we don't like it?
I mean, once the special use permit is approved, the applicant has a right to continue using that special use permit as long as they remain in compliance with the conditions associated with it. Then it does require action by the planning commission to revoke a special use permit. So falling out of compliance with a special use permit on its own doesn't immediately result in that special use permit going away. What I will tell you is that the special use permit, special uses that are authorized within the city are reviewed on an annual basis for compliance with their special use permits. They're obviously not reviewed daily or monthly, but we do annual inspections to ensure the special use permit are still in effect. And if there was a complaint here about failure to comply with the special use permit requirements, we would handle that as we would any other complaint about a code violation and do an investigation. And if it can be substantiated, we can of course ask the applicant to bring the property back into compliance. We can fine and issue a ticket, and we could initiate revocation of both the special use permit, but also keep in mind that these folks are subject to both a city and state operating license. So above and beyond what a typical special use in the city would be subject to in terms of oversight, these folks are also required to remain compliant with the city licensing process, as well as the state licensing and inspection process. So we have additional safeguards here that don't exist for other special uses in the city. We have very few licensed uses in the city. We have a lot of special uses in the city. So, and the only other item I would just add is that we could have all the information in the world about the odor mitigation proposal for the project, and that's not going to confirm or ensure that there's never an odor emanating from this facility. Even if we had all the specifications in the world, doesn't guarantee that there will never be an odor or a noise from the facility. The reality is that that's not the standard that we hold people to under the code, is that you never, ever, ever have even the mildest impact on your neighbor. We try to mitigate those impacts so that they have the least level of impact possible. So with that being said, the Planning Commission is within your purview. If you shared the concerns expressed by the neighboring property owner, or if you have your own concerns, to recommend additional conditions of approval tonight, or to request additional information from the applicant if you feel it's necessary to make a decision.
Would you then say that the level of detail that's provided in the response, that's level of detail we wouldn't normally see in the Planning Commission or in the proposal or the application?
Yes. Yeah, and this is not our first marijuana grower that's been reviewed at the Planning Commission level, or the first marijuana establishment or facility. And I don't believe, from the standpoint of the special use permit criteria, that we've received anything less here than we typically receive from applicants for the same use.
Yeah, and I don't want to get capricious here and say, well, you can't do this, but we've already agreed to a couple of other of these. Are there sort of rules about how much noise? Is there a decibel ruling eventually a decibel rule at a distance that?
The city's noise ordinances are specific in some regards when it comes to things like animal noises and sustained long-term noises or special event noises, but not specific to the level you're describing. It's kind of a general nuisance principle. So you could have an enforcement officer going out doing an investigation and having to make a conclusion that there's a excessive amount of noise emanating from the property compared to what should be expected in a normal circumstance. From my standpoint, I would not anticipate for the HVAC units for this site to be excessively noisy compared to what would be typical in an industrial district, especially at the distance that they would be from any of the adjacent properties. And certainly there are mitigation efforts that you can take to limit that noise if that's a concern the planning commission has, you can screen and otherwise buffer those units to prevent the emanation of that noise off property. You're never going to be able to conclusively eliminate noise impacts through those efforts, but if you feel additional measures are necessary, you could certainly include that in your motion.
I
Jacob?
guess I have
Oh.
a question for the, I don't know if this is appropriate, a question for the applicant. I mean, or anybody, there are AC units on the roof of this building right now. Am I correct in that? Because that's one of the bullet points.
Yes, it is. Yes, we have 8 units right now and 1 large air handler that's not in operation, but it is there. So I've owned this building for the last 10 years or more. You know, so the building does have air handler units. It has the same units that are on their building across the street, which is 802. So we both have anywhere from 5-ton to 10-ton heat and AC units that are already there. And let me explain a little bit about the units. Our units are, the systems that we're going to use are closed-in systems. The air that's inside the building does not exhale out into the outside building. Okay, so it goes through a heat system that's already built in. Just like, for instance, your heat system at your houses. Most of you have central air at your homes. That central air unit that's outside of your bedroom window, your whatever that's outside close to your house, that is called a condenser. What that does is it takes the heat from your AC refrigerant and it runs it up through a small fan. So each one of these units has that little condenser that's just like at everybody's house that you have right now. So anybody on the has the same unit that's going to be up top, which is like a 1-ton to 1.5 ton type unit that's going to run up top. So actually it's less noisy than the heaters that we're running today. And the odor, I do want to say that we are going to do everything in our possibility, everything to control, mediate, and have no odor leaving this facility at all. The 802 building is to the south. Are prevalent and I don't expect to have anything, but if there was ever a smell that came out all summer long, the wind necessarily comes from this southwest, and in the winter it necessarily comes out of the northwest to northeast. So we don't anticipate having any outside smells leaving. If we do, we will take care of them. We don't want, like I said, we want to be stewards of the community. We're not here to, we don't want to start something that's going to create a problem for our neighbors or anyone. We don't want the smell to get out. We don't really want anybody to really know that we're here for more than many reasons, for security, for all kinds of stuff like that. So we just want to stay to ourselves and, not be big signs and flashing lights or any of that stuff. So I hope that helps. So
Did you say that the air handling units on their building is pretty much the same as the air handling units on your building as we stand now?
Yes.
I'm done.
Commissioner Friedrich?
Mr. Kane, how many medical or marijuana growers do we currently have operating in the city?
At this time, we don't have any in operation. We have 2 other medical marijuana Class C growers that have conditional authorization and have been through the Planning Commission process. We have 1 Class C adult use grower. Let me check that. I don't want to get these numbers wrong, and they're constantly changing. On the adult use side, there are 2 Class C growers that have conditional authorization, none that are open. And on the medical side, we have 3 Class C growers, 2 that have conditional authorization, or I should say all 3 have conditional authorization. 1 is before you tonight for their special use permit. And that's it on that side. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ortman?
I was just gonna ask if, I believe with one of the previous grower applications we reviewed, they did go through that, their HVAC requirements for the state licensure was pretty specific about, it's more than just like the average air conditioning heating unit. I mean, that it would need, it does help to filter out some of those smells and things like that. So if that, am I remembering that correctly, that was one of the things that they really looked at when they were looking at their air filtration?
I recall the same thing, Christine.
Any further discussion or motion?
Does this letter on their part become an official addendum to their application?
No, Commissioner Daly, no, it would not.
I mean, I don't know that it ought to, so I don't know how to.
Move to approve SUP 2101 and SPR 2101, subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall comply with all special use permit criteria for medical marijuana facilities, as well as the specific criteria applying to growers. 2, the applicant shall provide specifications for the bicycle parking. 3, the applicant shall provide a landscaping plan that includes the quantity, species, and size of proposed plantings. 4, the applicant shall comply with requirements of public works and public safety.
Second.
Any discussion?
Apologize if I'm doing this wrong once again, but is it possible we could perhaps discuss or add directly the additional comment in the objection letter, which says that the conditional approval would include opportunities to review and comment as to subsequent filings by the applicant, so as to address these concerns in some satisfactory way for the objectors.
Madam Chair, I could answer that in part and just say certainly anything that's related to the special use permit record is public record. So if someone is interested in having information about the property within the boundaries of the Freedom of Information Act, then of course the city would comply with that request. What I could not offer to any third party is a review and comment after this point. I mean, certainly people could look at and provide comments, but the practical reality is that folks must meet the minimum standards that are imposed. So they have to meet the special use permit conditions that are imposed tonight by the Planning Commission. They would have to be consistently operating under their site plan approval. And in terms of their building permits and other permits, those will be reviewed against the minimums of code. So I just say that to say that if after reviewing a code compliant odor control system for the property, the applicant asked that, or the neighboring property owner requested that the applicant modify that system in some manner, there's not a mechanism under our process for a third party to impose that condition after the fact. That's the job of the Planning Commission and staff to ensure compliance with standards implemented. And I should say it's the applicant's responsibility to meet the minimum requirements. imposed. So there's no, they could certainly offer to do things above and beyond at their free will, but there's nothing that the city could impose ex post facto to make them do more than the minimum requirements imposed by the code or by the planning commission.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the concern. I think that sort of amendment would just be unwieldy in its nature.
And I think ultimately we're just trying to make sure that there is no odor spreading. So I think if that were an issue, that could be brought up later. Do you know, is the concern because it's university property? This is a question to David Barnes and Thor.
I think that is putting it correctly. It's an office use. If it was an industrial use, I think we'd view this potentially different.
Okay. All right.
And that property, folks, is an administrative building. There's no educate or no teaching. I don't think goes on there at all.
At this time.
Well,
But it's industrial. It's in an industrial area. So that's all. I just wanted
yeah,
to.
sorry.
Yeah.
Any further discussion from anybody?
Nope, I'm ready to vote.
Mr. Kane, if you'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Daly,
Nay.
Commissioner Friedrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin.
That was aye.
Sorry, Commissioner Kingsworthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman,
Aye.
Commissioner Rise.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 8-1.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Next item on the agenda is public comment. If anyone from the public would like to comment, now would be your last opportunity to do so. Mr. Kane, you're on mute.
Really?
Madam Chair,
Really?
comment blocked. There are no communications at this time.
Thank you. I'm closing public comment, and next item on the agenda is under new business, the 2021 meeting schedule.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to leave my mute button unmuted for the rest of the meeting. I'll probably be doing a lot of talking anyway. The next action item tonight is to set your 2021 meeting schedule. As is the standard practice for the Planning Commission, the proposed schedule has those meetings occurring on the first Thursday of each month at 7 o'clock. Submittal deadlines are generally the second Monday of the preceding month at 4:30. I am proposing one modification to that first Thursday schedule, which would be to place the April meeting on the second Thursday, April the 8th. That particular week is the week of the Mount Pleasant Public Schools and the Sacred Heart Academy spring break. And for the benefit of the Planning Commission and any prospective applicants, we generally try to avoid spring break weeks as well as holiday weeks when they're in direct conflict with the meeting date. So staff's recommending that you adopt the proposed schedule as presented tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the schedule, meeting schedule.
Support.
Any discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman,
Aye.
Commissioner Eyes.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Next item on the agenda is the 2020 annual report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In accordance with state law, staff prepares for your consideration each year an annual report which describes the activities of the Planning Commission during the preceding year. Typically, this annual report is provided to and presented to the City Commission during your annual joint meeting, which we will look to schedule at your February meeting. We'll look to have a proposed date and time for that meeting and ask you to set that joint meeting. In general, you all, with the exception of Commissioner Kingsworthy, were a part of these activities in 2020, just providing an overview and summary of the things that were reviewed and approved during that time period. I would note that on page 7 of the draft annual report, you'll see the selected winners for this the 2020 Community Improvement Awards, which you all voted on in December. So we're looking forward to getting those awards finalized with our partners, the students at the Gracia Isabella Technical Education Center and the Graphic Arts Program. They produced our awards now for, I believe this will be the 6th year that they've produced the awards, if not the 7th. And so we're looking forward to working with them again this year to produce those awards for presentation to those award winners. I'd welcome any questions the Planning Commission has regarding the draft annual report. Otherwise, staff is looking for a motion to approve the annual report as submitted.
Move that we accept the annual report as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to note that it's slightly disheartening that we're, consistently falling in our what appears to be activities.
Yeah, and I would like to address that. I mean, just briefly to say that we looked back at that last year, and I think there's 2 things to take into account with that. One, looking back on some of the past year's approvals, some of the items that were brought forward for approval are items that no longer require our review of the Planning Commission. So there's just some cases that have been shifted out of that threshold. The second is a lot of the numbers from the period 2017 and back even to 2009 relate to the M2 redevelopment process. And for those of you who were on the Planning Commission at the time, you'll recall that in discussion about formalization or elimination of that process, it was widely acknowledged that we were sort of nearing the end of the low-hanging redevelopment fruit in that neighborhood, and that we expected that those case numbers would start to decline. And I think that has come to be the case. I would note, however, having said that, when we move into staff report, we are expecting an application for a rooming house redevelopment at your February meeting. But those cases are going to become more and more limited, just given the lack of potential supply for that. So, but the comment is taken.
Thank you.
I do appreciate quality over quantity, however. So just keep that in mind.
Noted.
Noted.
I would add, as the new person, that notwithstanding Commissioner Daly's observation of lower activity, perhaps this report I think is good read from the staff and reflects well upon the commission in terms of the work you've been doing the last several years. I hope that I can contribute to that going forward.
We didn't really get a formal introduction.
I will during the other business staff report, we'll go ahead and we'll have Commissioner Kingsworthy give his full biography to you.
If no other discussion, let's have a roll call vote. Mr. Kane?
Did we have a motion on the floor on that? Yes, we did. I'm sorry. Commissioner Daly.
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich.
Aye.
Commissioner Honig.
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin.
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva.
Aye.
Commissioner Leash.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman.
Aye.
Commissioner Rise.
Aye.
Madam Chair, the motion was adopted 9-0.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss amendment to sections 154-203F and 154-410B of the zoning ordinance, and consider setting a public hearing for February 4th, 2021. Mr. Kane.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and share my screen. I provided a brief overview of the proposal that's before you tonight, which is to consider modifying the current residential dwelling use restriction that applies to a portion of the city's CD5 zoning district. And essentially that residential dwelling use restriction is a carryover of the city's previous restriction on ground level residential uses within certain parts of the community. That included our former C2 zoning district, which was our central business district zoning district, as well as was part of the Mission Redevelopment Overlay District. That district allowed for flexible standards applied by the Planning Commission, which would include residential units. Initially, that overlay district only allowed for residential units on the ground level and above. Ultimately, in 2015, the Planning Commission recommended and the City Commission adopted a modification to that would allow ground level residential units in limited circumstances in that overlay district, primarily as a transitional use to an adjacent zoning district. So again, not permitting those ground level residential uses along our frontage on that corridor. That's essentially consistent with what staff is recommending in this case. The objective here is to provide some flexibility for additional ground level residential units, but to do so in areas that are not along the commercial frontage. That would include the areas where that special requirement is currently imposed, which is primarily a small portion of downtown Mount Pleasant. I would describe it as the historic downtown core. It does not apply broadly to the entirety of downtown in the manner that the former C2 prohibition did. That special requirement also applies at the present time to the South Mission Street corridor in that district. That is an area, again, that historically, except through limited cases under the Mission Overlay, prohibited residential development of any kind. This would open the door to allow for some residential development at the back and rear, essentially, of these developments, places that aren't along the commercial frontage. It's been noted as a recommendation in a variety of places, most recently in some of the state's promulgated best practice recommendations for zoning ordinances, one of which I shared with the Planning Commission, I believe about a year and a half ago, which recommended considering some additional flexibility on ground level residential uses in commercial areas. As recommended tonight, the standards are consistent with what we discussed at your work session in December. It would essentially create an exception under the residential dwelling use restriction language that would say that it could be ground level residential uses could be permitted by special use permit. It would implement particular special use permit criteria for those ground level residential uses. And it would modify the definition of the restriction itself so that it made clear that there was a alternative of obtaining a special use permit in order to get a ground level residential approval. Again, this would be significantly more flexibility than has existed under the current or previous zoning ordinance in terms of allowances. And it would be a similar process to the manner in which ground level residential had been approved in the Mission Street corridor. Staff's recommended conditions to accompany the special use permit criteria would include ensuring that along the frontage there'd be at least 50 foot of building depth that provides a non-residential use. This would allow for those commercial corridors to remain commercial corridors and have street level activation that a residential unit wouldn't provide. It also requires that those non-residential spaces still maintain interior access to the rear of the building. This would allow for deliveries, waste management, and access from the back. Typically, that might be a parking lot or an alleyway. This would help to ensure that those activities are not taking place on the public sidewalk or in the public street. So with that, staff has brought forward the draft ordinance. I'd welcome any questions from the Planning Commission. Tonight's action, all that's being requested of you is to set a public hearing on this item for your February meeting. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Any questions for Mr. Kane? Any discussion?
Just set a public hearing on text change 2101 and our February 4th, 2021 regular meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Kane, will you take a roll call vote? Oh, wait, Corey Friedrich.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, I think this is a great idea, Jacob. How did this issue come to the attention of the planning staff?
Well, good question. So there has been over a period of time some interest expressed locally in considering ground level residential, specifically in downtown. Back in 2015, the amendments to the Mission Street overlay requirements to allow ground level in some cases was initiated by a local developer that had interest in doing a ground level residential project as part of a larger mixed use project on Mission Street. Unfortunately, that project still came to fruition, but the ground level residential component ultimately did not get included in the final project that came to the Planning Commission. And as I mentioned, and I apologize, I should have been ready with the name of that document that I referenced, but like I said, I think it was approximately a year and a half ago that I provided you all with a copy of the User's Guide to Zoning Reform, which the Congress for the New Urbanism, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and the RRC program and some others partnered on producing. And one of their recommendations in looking at your zoning code, I would say, obviously staff upon receipt of that guide reviewed it to see how our, at that time, new zoning ordinance stacked up. It stacked up very favorably, but there were some items where that might merit some further consideration. So we've also looked at how other communities have handled this, and there are some case studies within mid-Michigan where within downtown settings, some ground level residential has been permitted at the rear of a otherwise fairly large commercial building. And so we've talked about that with staff from those agencies, those municipalities as well, to get a feel for their experience with that flexibility. And everyone that we've spoken to date has agreed that it was a good thing. And the development partners have been satisfied about it. It obviously offers some flexibility, but it also creates some opportunity to bring some more residents into these corridors, which has benefits. It also creates an opportunity in some cases to create an accessible dwelling unit that might otherwise be lacking in some of these areas by nature of the dwellings typically being on the second floor or above. So basically just started working through the concept with Michelle Sponseller, our downtown development director, looking at the properties in Mount Pleasant and thinking about what, as with any text change, what are the unanticipated things that could happen with this great change? What might we not be thinking about that would be problematic? And so that's where some of these criteria developed, and thinking about how do we do this, but do it in a way that doesn't degrade the quality of these commercial corridors.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Kane. Can you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Daly?
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich?
Aye.
Commissioner Honig?
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin?
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy?
Aye.
Commissioner Kostreva?
Aye.
Commissioner Leash?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman?
Aye.
Commissioner Rise?
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Next item on the agenda is staff report. Mr. Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will just say, nothing about meeting in person sounds more exciting than not having to do roll call votes anymore. I'm sure you all are looking forward to that day too. Although fortunately, I thought I would for sure I was going to say Corrigan at some point tonight, and I managed to not do that. So first on the staff report is an administrative review report. Staff approved a site plan at 1300 North Harris Street, Coin Oil. This was for a 469 square foot metal building addition to an existing building on that property. And it was approved back on December the 16th. For your February meeting, as I mentioned during our discussion of the annual report, I am anticipating we'll have an application for a rooming house redevelopment project on Douglas Street. And so I spoke with the applicant engineer today, and it sounds like that's on track to come in on Monday's deadline. We may see one or two marijuana grower special use permits again next month. We have a interested party in an adult use Class A grower license in the industrial area north of Pickard Street. And we also have issued a conditional authorization to Stash Ventures, which you'll recall is currently conditionally authorized for a Class C medical marijuana grower license at 210 West Pickard. They filed to co-locate a Class C adult use grower at the same location. So those items I would expect will either be on your February or March agenda. As to Commissioner Irwin's question earlier, in February, that is also the time where the Planning Commission elects their chairperson, vice chairperson, and crossover member for the Zoning Board of Appeals. We will clearly need a new vice chairperson at a minimum, since Vice Chair Horgan termed off the Planning Commission at the end of 2020. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in serving in one of those three capacities or have any questions about those roles, certainly let me know or reach out to Commissioner Friedrich or to Chair Honig if you have any specific questions about their current roles. We'll be looking to fulfill those in February. Last thing on my list tonight is to circle back and welcome David Kingsworthy to the Planning Commission. David's filling Susan Horgan's seat and was recently appointed to a 3-year term on the Planning Commission. And so not to put you totally on the spot, Commissioner Kingsworthy, but if you could just take a moment to introduce yourself to your fellow Planning Commissioners.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kane. Hello, everybody. David Kingsworthy here. I've been in Mount Pleasant since about 2013. Grew up in Grand Rapids, Alma College graduate. I live in South Kinney Avenue with my wife of almost 30 years. We've got a high school senior at the moment, and one that's finishing up at Mid-Michigan College. We're heavily involved with church. I do a lot of things, if I can, locally with environmental causes. We're soccer fans, and as to the city of Mount Pleasant, I've been a big believer, certainly in the theory and also in the practice where possible, of the strength of the community development, institutions and communities. Needless to say, things like the library, that's a shout out, and so many other local groups and organizations that contribute and work together and collaborate for the quality of life here in the city. But I think also what the citizens themselves can offer in terms of their ideas, their abilities, their dreams. To me, those are I think those are worthy ideas and questions, and that's why I'm drawn to people who are civic minded, people who, like yourselves, are interested in bettering the community and sacrificing their time and contributing to that. And so I just humbly hope that I can fill the big shoes that I hear have departed, and that I can do my part to assist you in doing what we can to move us forward. So I'm excited and look forward to working with you all.
Welcome.
Very good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
So with no further business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do we need a roll call vote? I think I asked you to.
Actually, no, you don't.
Let's just one more, just for the good of the order. Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
Commissioner Friedrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Honig,
Aye.
Commissioner Irwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsworthy,
I'm
Commissioner Kostreva,
Aye.
Commissioner Leash,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortman,
Hi.
Commissioner Eyes.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you're adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Hi.
take care. Thanks, Jacob.